and uploaded in like, what can I say, 7 weeks. Right. I'll just put that there. I don't do intros, but like, I could just say, since we read creepypastas, I'm going to close my door. I'm reading the Russian sleep experiment. These two aren't reading, because, like, they'll probably hear that echo.
But we will. But we'll chat.
Yeah, you can chat, but, like, probably shouldn't read, because get confused from your own echo. Right.
I have a voice in my head.
Right, the story of the Russian sleep experiment. My room is really echoey. I'll just get close. Okay.
Mine's echoey too.
Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them. Since it was toxic in high concentrations... I'm a bit of an idiot. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they had only microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows into their chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water and toilet, and enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month.
Okay.
Whoopsie. The test subjects were political prisoners, deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised falsely that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark.
She's just like hanging around with you.
Shh. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that... I can't read. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. I mean, that happens when you don't sleep. It's just one of the symptoms of, thingy, but, you know.
Happens all the time when I watch an anime.
Relatable.
Can't relate. Don't watch anime.
That's kind of sad.
Silly child.
Yeah. What are you doing with your life? You need to throw your life away into binge-watching romance anime.
Exactly.
They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering to the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected that this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber and repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. Go on, Elijah. Okay, then. You're a bit...
Nothing.
The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about his behaviour is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather didn't react to it. They continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own poo-poo, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. Oh, I think like when I can remember hearing someone else do it on a podcast, and I think it was like they were like nearer to the end. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to shush.
Hush, child.
The screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones. After 3 more days, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought it impossible that no sound could be coming with the 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a heavy level of strenuous exercise. I don't know if I said that right, but it's spelled Strenuous. Sorry.
I'm lost.
Of strenuous exercise. I don't know how to say it.
Strenuous, yeah.
Strenuous. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives they were afraid were either dead or vegetables. Vegetables. I like vegetables. I eat all of my Brussels sprouts.
Okay then.
They announced, we're opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom. To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response. We no longer want to be freed. Oh. It's getting heavy. What the Okay. Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphone began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and soldiers sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them in life. I lost it a bit there. The food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chests stuffed into the drain in the centre of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on the fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth, as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most if not all of them were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the ribcage of all 4 test subjects have been removed, while the heart, lungs and diaphragm remained in place. The skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the ribcage. All blood vessels and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out around the eviscerated but still living bodies of the subjects. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that they were digesting their own flesh that they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Hey, I would not like to be demonetised. I would like to earn money, but hey, let's carry on reading for all of those sick bastards that want to hear this. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber, and alternately begged and demanded. I don't know if that's proper English, but I'm kind of confused.
I'm looking at the next paragraph. That is terrifying.
And alternately begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died having his throat ripped out. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles... Someone's calling me. Someone's balls got ripped off. Oh, yeah. Another was gravely injured by having his balls ripped off. And an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives if you count the ones that committed suicide in the weeks following the incident.
Bloody hell.
Jesus Christ.
And there was a film made about this.
It said there was. In the struggle,
that's graphic, isn't it?
in the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured, and he bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected more than 10 times the human dose of morphine derivative, and still fought like a cornered animal. Someone keeps calling me. And still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. When heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out, to the point where more air was in his vascular system than blood. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone. He keeps calling me.
Hello that your computer has virus. We can buy the Microsoft Support Style package with the premium Microsoft Support Get package. Your computer has virus. We will need 130.
I want to laugh at all the jokes, but then the story is a bit graphic. I don't really want to laugh.
Ha 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 ha! I love thinking about the thought of people ripping the end of their fingers off by will of that.
I love the thought.
You're right, mate.
Bloody Russians, mate. Am I right?
Didn't they send a dog to Mars or something? On the moon?
Yeah,
Love that.
yeah. The space race. They sent bloody animals. Monkey, I think it was. They sent a
No,
monkey.
there was a dog as well. There was a dog.
I don't know. They are just crackers. Anyway, even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach, and just repeating the word "more" over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 were taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare him for the surgery. Oh, I was losing breath. He fought furiously against his restraints when the anaesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way for a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier was holding that wrist as well. It took only a little more anaesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had triple the normal level of oxygen. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in his struggle to not be subdued. Most of them were from the force his own muscles had exerted on them. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed, he was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval. When the anaesthetic gas was brought near him, he shook his head. Yes. Stop calling me, man. Hello, my name is Kyle. I work in the IRS. It's Medilla.
Stop putting carpet on the bloody table.
No.
He shook his head yes when someone suggested, reluctantly. They tried the surgery without anaesthetic and did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal. Oh, he joined. Can someone type in chat that we're doing the podcast?
Is he on here?
Yeah, he's on. He just logged on. Okay. Right. The procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding started What is that? Presiding? I don't know. The surgeon presided started repeatedly that it should be medically possible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery that stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times when his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming that this must be something out of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting. The other two subjects were given the same surgery, both without anaesthetic as well, although they had been injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralysed, the subjects...
Why have you got piss blocks?
Alright then. Once paralysed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given: I must remain awake. All three subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. The researchers facing the wrath of the military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, a former KGB agent, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and their restraints padded for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling the moment it was that... right.
Deep breaths.
To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling at the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious that at this point all three were putting a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might. First left, then right, then left again for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired for the EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brain waves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were repeatedly suffering from brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on a paper scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut, and at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed out that of a deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. To be sealed in now. Okay, right. I couldn't read that properly.
In what? I've lost the story.
They wanted to be sealed back in the chamber. Yeah. His brainwaves showed the same flatlines as the one who had just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still retained still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you, he screamed at the man strapped to the table. What are you? He demanded. I must know. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal heaven where we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out, so nearly free.
Original author hasn't it?
What are you doing in my room? Get out now. Get out.
My headset.
That's my Nintendo. You don't give it to me. Bitch.
If you like the eye vendor I gave you, Hydra. Oh.
And it's got a picture, but I don't know.
No one wants to see that picture.
Yeah.
Looks
He
like
teleported out of the bloody room. He teleported through the ceiling.
Exactly.
Who did?
Did you see the eye vendor?
No, I didn't see the eye vendor.
No, I gave it to
Why is this?
Elijah.
Why is this
Yeah.
sand called hashtag?
Listen, I'll try and make it say.
Oh, it's done then.
I think so. I don't know. Should we go back to building that stuff then? I guess. I mean, if we'll stop filming, that is.
What's those?
Bloody computer.
I love how it's a fandom page as well.
It's not a fandom
What?
page. It's not a fandom
It is
page.
Wiki Fandom.
I'm not. I didn't go on that.
Oh. I did it straight up. What did you rename it? Give it here.
I couldn't rename it. I'm gonna rename
Are you
it
still
sex.
recording?
But,
Are you
yes,
still
I am
recording?
still recording.
Huh?
Is everyone really shaken up? Are you gonna go to bed and think about their lifeless, bloodshot eyes
Who broke
as you
the
fall asleep?
wall?
What wall?
It's all right here. You
Elijah,
pig.
I'm doing your bloody ender. What is that? Oh, there's a lever in there. Who put the lever there?
I don't know.
Want me?
Hello,
Are
children.
you even still recording?
Yes, I am. You can't even
Oh,
put
that's
a...
lovely then.
Go away. What do you
I
mean
don't
it's
know.
lovely? Of course it's lovely.
Should we do a tour of the world?